right, haven't done one of these story times in a while, but last night I was sitting around thinking how lucky I am to have traveled to so many interesting and cool and unique places. And one of the themes that popped into my head was these various times that local people, guides, witch doctors have actually saved my life. So I thought I'd tell a couple of those stories here today, see if you guys get a kick out of them. So one of the first times was crazy. When I was 21 years old, I started a tiny little education business here in California, and I sold that when I graduated college. And I took that money, which wasn't even enough to buy a car, and I traveled out of a backpack for 14 months to 21 different countries. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life. If you're ever able to do something like that, I strongly recommend it. But during those travels, I found myself in Southeast Asia, specifically Thailand, somewhere I'd wanted to go to my whole life to look for king cobras, potentially trek for tigers, go into the forest, find wild Asiatic elephants, all those kind of things. So I decided while I was in northern Thailand to do this trekking adventure. Now, as I mentioned, I barely had any money, so I signed up with this sort of backpackers group to go trekking into the mountains of Thailand. It was pretty cool. You meet a group of internationals. You know, there were a couple guys from Australia, there were a couple Swedish girls, there were all these various people, and my girlfriend and I were there together. My girlfriend, who's now my wife, Jessica. And we signed up and met all these people, and it was like a 4-day trek, right? So we grabbed the backpacks, we grabbed food, you trek, and you get to a hut, and on that hut is a mosquito net and a pad, and you sleep, and then you trek more the next day. So we did this awesome trek, and it was dry season. It was one of the driest droughts that they had had in quite a while. And as we were going, it was hot, it was dry, we were barely finding any wildlife. In fact, it was kind of sad. There was a lot of that empty forest syndrome. If you're not familiar with that, it's when a forest gets so cleared out and depleted that you don't even hear crickets or bugs or birds chirping. But regardless, we trekked, didn't see much, had a couple great nights, great meals, cooked in these little huts. And on the last day, and this is where the story gets good, before we were about to exit, there was a waterfall. And it was so great because it was hot and dry, like I said, and there was this big waterfall. And so this guy, our Thai guide, was like, here's what you can do when you're at the waterfall. Like, there's this big pool down beneath, and up above, where the waterfall comes out, you can climb up to the top, and if you jump out, you can jump off the waterfall. It's like, oh, cool. So everybody goes and they do it. You know, basically all the guys are all showing off for each other. Girls were like hanging out down below, having fun like girls do, being much smarter and safer. And so these two Aussie guys I was with, they go and jump. And then there was this, I think a Russian dude, and he goes and I go, and we're like, cool, that was awesome. And then, you know, I'm trying to like show off. There's pretty girls down there, including my girlfriend and these guys who we've been hanging out with. And I'm like, I'm gonna do something way cooler. So so stupid. I decide that instead of go up the route that the guy shows us and jump off the top of the waterfall and splash into the nice deep pool, I'm gonna climb up underneath the veil of the waterfall because there was an overhanging lip. And so I decide I'm gonna climb up underneath this overhanging veil. And so, you know, the Thai guide's whatever, he's kind of not paying attention, and everybody's swimming, everybody's having a good time. Not me, not Forrest. He's got to show off. He's got to make a big deal out of nothing. So I decide to climb up these rocks while the water's pouring overhead. And I'm like scaling this wall. It's slippery, it's steep, it's jagged. And even though it's a dry season, there's still a voluminous amount of water pouring down off this lip. And so, so I climb all the way up to where I'm right underneath the actual overhang. So I'm like standing here, the water pouring out here, and I'm on this sort of little lip underneath the waterfall. I just remember like thinking, it's like all I can hear is the water pouring overhead. And I can't see anybody because I've climbed up here all by myself. And I'm like, all right, this is gonna be sweet. So I wait a beat, look around. I'm like, okay, 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna jump and I'm gonna punch through that curtain of water and like, you know, Spider-Man it out and hit the pool. So I'm like 1, 2, 3, and I jump. But being the idiot that I was, I didn't account for the fact that there were millions of gallons of water pouring down per second, and that I wasn't nearly strong enough to break through that. So instead, what happens is I jump out and hit that wall of water, and the wall of water just pushed me down instantly. Now, what happened was, because it was a dry season, the waterfall was breaking on all these rocks underneath. I mean, I'm sure many of you have seen waterfalls, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I climb up, I jump, and I just remember thinking, oh, because I hit this wall of water and it shoots me down with force. Instead of punching through in this cool, pointless thing that I wanted to do, I get pummeled down directly, probably 25 feet or so, onto the rocks. And I remember landing and just going, oh, and then thinking, well, that didn't really hurt. And then I sort of roll, and you're in this water, it's crazy, it's chaotic, there's all this water pounding, and I hit the rocks, and then the flow of the water pushed me off the rocks. And what was crazy is it didn't hurt. And I was like, well, I'm okay. And I'm like, swim. And I'm like drowning, and I'm telling myself, swim. And I'm realizing that I'm paralyzed from the neck down. I'm trying to tell my legs to kick. I'm trying to tell my hands to grab water and swim. And my brain has not clicked in with my body yet to tell myself that I've paralyzed myself from the neck down. After a millisecond or so of realizing I can't swim, I can't move my legs, I can't move my arms, now I'm actually starting to drown, like to the point of I can't get to the surface because nothing's working. Now, fortunately, my girlfriend, Jessica, now my wife, she knew what stupid thing I was attempting to do. So her and the other folks were all waiting to watch me burst through this curtain of water, and they had seen me hit the wall and get hammered down on the rocks. And all of a sudden, as I'm basically drowning and looking around underwater, I see and feel these hands come down and pull me out. And Jessica's jumped off of where she was sitting, run down and jumped in and grabbed me, and she pulls my head up. And the Thai guides rush in, and the Australian guys rush in. And what's happened is I've jumped off this waterfall, hit this giant voluminous curtain of water, pummeled against the rocks, and I landed somewhere on my spine, somewhere up here, right below my neck. And that's what sent this paralyzation through my body. Now, I'm in no pain at all. Jessica pulls me up. She thinks I'm unconscious, but she pulls me up, and I'm totally coherent, totally awake. And I'm like, oh, thank you, Jess, thank you. She's like, oh, are you okay? And I was like, yeah. She's like, move. And I couldn't move. And all of a sudden, my heart sinks even saying this. I realized that I had paralyzed myself from the neck down. Now, this is probably the worst feeling I think I've ever had in my entire life, because I wasn't in pain, I wasn't really in shock, I'd just been saved from drowning, but I believed that I was a paraplegic from the neck down, and it gave me this sense of fear and despair unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. So anyway, I lay there as I got pulled out of the water, and I got lay next to the bank, and it took I'm a pretty big guy, it took 4 guys to move me onto the bank, and I just lay there completely paralyzed. I couldn't move my hands, my fingers, my legs. Wherever they put my arm would stay, my legs would stay. And we were still an hour's plus trek away. So luckily one of the Thai guys had cell phone, because we were only an hour's trek from the road where we were getting picked up. And he picks up the phone, he starts screaming in Thai, whatever. And then Jessica, my wife, springs into action, and she works with the Thai guys to cut down some bamboo and use towels and things, and they built a stretcher, and then they rolled me onto the stretcher, and everybody was in shock and sort of panic mode, and they rolled me onto the stretcher, and these little Thai guys, they were probably 5'5", 5'6". I had so much muscle and strength because they were outdoorsmen. They hoisted me on their shoulders, and they walked me out for the hour that it took. And I just remember, it's kind of weird because I've almost blocked this from my memory, but I just didn't even want to be alive at that point. I was so upset at what I'd done. The fact that I was paralyzed from the neck down this whole time, I'm really not feeling any pain. I'm not feeling anything, and I can't move my legs. I can't move my arms, nothing. Anyway, an hour goes by, and Jessica's constantly checking on me. She's like, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? And I just decide to go, I just go quiet. I don't decide to, I just couldn't talk. So I go completely quiet and just sort of tuning out everything and just miserable. And then we get out to the road. They hike me up the steep, muddy trail. We get out to the road, and the guys hoist me in this stretcher from where they're carrying me into the bed of a pickup truck. And then it's about a 2-hour drive from where we get picked up to the Chiang Mai hospital. And I didn't even realize, but Jess had communicated with the driver, straight to the hospital, blah, blah, blah. But I'm lying in the back of the truck. Jessica's sitting in the truck with her hand on my chest. She's like, you're gonna be okay, you're gonna be okay, you're gonna be okay. And all of a sudden, as I'm lying there, maybe an hour into the 2-hour drive, I start to feel pain in my upper neck. I'm like, oh, my neck's starting to hurt. And I feel like it's just the adrenaline wearing off. But then, one of the strangest, most surreal, and worst moments of my life kicks in. I started to move my toes. So the whole time I was thinking, I was like, come on, you can't be paralyzed, come on. And all of a sudden I started to wiggle my toes just a little bit, just back and forth. And it was the craziest thing, because I wiggled my toes, and then 5 minutes later I could move my ankles, and And then I could move my knees, and slowly the sensation of being able to move came back. And I got rushed to the Chiang Mai hospital. I got put in a hospital bed, rushed into x-rays. I had broken a small piece of my vertebrae in my neck, and the impact alone had pinched a nerve in my vertebrae, and that nerve pinching had paralyzed me. But as the swelling has started to recede from the initial impact, the nerve damage sort of came back and the feeling came back. And it took a couple days in that hospital. Like, I think it was a day and a half before I could actually like start to move my legs and walk. And yeah, I mean, other than the slight bone fracture in my neck that I still have today, there's a floating bone in there. Slowly over time, the feeling came back, and the paralysis went away, and it was one of the craziest, worst things ever. But yeah, those Thai guys building that stretcher, hauling me out of there, throwing me in the bed of the truck, never saw them again, never tipped them, never got to say thank you, nothing. I just got thrown in that truck bed, zoomed to the hospital, great health care in Chiang Mai, Thailand. And yeah, you know, between Jessica and them, they really did save my life. And if it wasn't my own fault for being so stupid and deciding to try and show off by jumping through a waterfall, none of that ever would have happened, and I'd probably still have a lot better posture and still be over 6 feet tall. So pity about that, but that's the first of those stories. All right, so another time, actually probably only 2 months later on the same trip, I had fully recovered from the Thailand accident. I still had neck pains. I still have neck pain, but I was back. I was on my feet. I was feeling good. And there was one thing that I wanted to do more than anything. My biggest bucket list item was to go to Komodo Island and see the Komodo dragons. I was so excited. I couldn't believe it. It was like one of those things we splurged on. You know, the little tiny airplane flights over there were like $60 each, which was like 2 days of spend because we had no money. And anyway, we decided to splurge. So we get a flight from somewhere in Bali, Denpasar, I think, to Bintang, Flores. And we get on the plane, we get there. Now this is 15 years ago or something. Now I believe there are like beautiful 5-star resorts and, you know, all that great luxury stuff you see in Indonesia. Back then there was nothing. There was one little like dirty homestay type hotel. It was nice, don't get me wrong. I shouldn't even say dirty. It was relatively clean. It was just dusty. And we land on the runway and we go over to that hotel. Now that's all fine, but keep in mind I've just spent 2 days of my budget getting here and 2 days of Jessica's budget getting here, and so we're like broke. So we land at the hotel, we go get checked in, whatever. We get our room, there's no AC, nothing, and we're like, okay, we need dinner. But, you know, our room had like a little sink, or I think it was like one of those little electrical stoves, but no, you know, basically nothing else. And so I was like, all right, let's go get some dinner. And I used to travel, when I was traveling around the world, in my backpack, I had a Rife Net 90 centimeter travel Euro. So it's a spear gun that breaks down into two. The shaft unscrews into two, and you can fit a whole spear gun this big in your backpack. And so I took with me no fins, but a mask and snorkel and that spear gun. And so we got to the hotel, we checked in, couldn't afford to pay for dinner. So I was like, all right, let's go get some food. And so we head down to the beach in Bintang, Flores, the day before actually taking the boat over to Komodo. And I'm gonna get us some food. I'm gonna spear some fish, I'm gonna get something. I hop in the water, beautiful, crystal clear Indonesian water. I'm swimming around, I see, you know, a bunch of little colorful tropical fish, nothing I wanna kill and eat. And then I dive down, I see a nice lobster, not huge, but a nice lobster. He's sticking his head out of a cave, and I'm like, oh, heck yeah, lobster for dinner, how good is that? Free lobster. And so I dive down and I shoot the lobster. Now, the spear goes straight through the lobster and wedges in the rock cave behind where the lobster's standing out. So this is how dumb I was doing this. And I'm like, oh no, you know, my one and only travel spear. So I go down and the lobster's on the spear, and I go down, I'm trying to pull, and the lobster's stuck. The spear's stuck, wedged into the rock in the cave. And so I decide to swim down, and you know, it's not deep, it's 10 feet, 15 feet deep. And I swim down, and I'm reaching into this cave, and I'm going like this, and I'm trying to get this lobster out, and I'm grabbing the spear, and I'm pulling it, I'm grabbing the spear, and I'm pulling it, pulling. I even go down, I put my 2 feet on the rock, and I'm pulling. I go up and down 15, 20 times, and finally, you know, a rock shifts or whatever, the flopper dislodges, and I get my spear shaft back, including my tiny little lobster that was barely enough for two. Now, I'm so proud because I got my lobster, and as I'm beginning to swim back, I go, ooh, got a little something on my arm there. And I realize that I've touched fire coral. Now, here's where the story gets crazy. burning on my arm starts to get bad, and I was so like in the moment. Like I even did feel it burning when I went down and grabbed it, but it's like, it's my one and only spear. I'm not gonna lose my spear. That's it for the rest of my trip. So I get my lobster, I get it, and the burning starts to kick in. I'm like, wow, that really burns. That really burns. And then I get back to the beach and I show Jess the tiny ass lobster that I got. And I'm like, I got us dinner. And she's like, great. And she's like, whoa, what's on your arm? And there's this red, you can kind of see it still, but there's this red patch on my arm and I had no shirt on and it goes all the way down here. And I was like, oh, I rubbed up against some fire coral. So we go back to the room and I start to feel a little queasy and the burning's really bad, but I kind of like, I think I put some milk on it or something, maybe peed on it. I don't know, tried to neutralize it. And, the burning's pretty bad, but burning kind of passes and the skin's all red. It's not that bad. Cook the lobster up, eat it, and then I'm like, whew, I don't feel so good. So what had happened, I'd gone down, and because of the repeated exposure of literally grinding this fire coral toxin into my skin over and over, I had injected myself with so many stinging cells from that fire coral that it had literally killed the skin. You can see the scar here. This was the main area that was left, but it killed all the skin, and I still have scarring from here basically to my nipple. And I woke up in the night, I was feverish, I was sweating, I was throwing up everywhere, and I basically had this poisoning from this fire coral, and my skin was jet black. Right there is the worst of it, where the scar is. It was jet black, and there were boils all the way basically from there to my nipple. And I was like, oh God, I feel terrible. So I ended up waking Jessica up. She had to go find like a night manager of this homestay hotel thing, and there was nothing they could do because we're on this island of Bintang Flores that had nothing. So in the morning, and the night was so long, in the morning of throwing up, queasy, feverish, everything else, she like found somebody who spoke English, who spoke to the hotel guy through a translator. It was this whole big thing. And eventually we end up like in a tuk-tuk going to the doctor. Now, as I rock up to the doctor, it's this steel building, like the corrugated tin like you see in like a squatter's shack in a movie like District 9 or something. And there's one wall, a door, a second wall, and a slope like this for the corrugated tin. And I'm like, what is going on here? And I'm so sick and I'm queased, I'm feverish, I'm sweating bullets. And Jessica goes in, she comes out, and it's this tiny little Indonesian lady. I mean, I'm talking like 4'9". And she's like, "Ba-da-da, ba-da-ba-da," speaking to us in Indonesian. And I'm like, whoa, I don't know, but I'm so sick, anything. We basically come to figure out there's no doctor on the island, but this lady is the vet for the water buffalo herds that are farmed for meat on the island. And she's the only medical person on the island of Bintang Flores. At least that's what we were told later. Now, I do this whole game of Pictionary with her while I'm queasy and throwing up, and I show her my arm, and I explain I was diving down, I catch a lobster, and I show her a picture on my iPhone, and the coral burns me, and I do this whole Pictionary game, and she's like, yeah, whatever. And then she like has me lie down on this table next to this wall that's been kicked in by a water buffalo, which is why the slope is like this. And she reaches up on the shelf and she pulls out a needle about this big, no plastic guard, no syringe covers, nothing. And she fills this thing with this yellowish green liquid. And I only know this because Jess told me later, because I was like face down on the table. And she pulls my pants down right over my bare butt and then just wham, right in the tush, like this much liquid just into my butt. Dirty needle, no clue what the liquid was, no clue what the medication was. I'm not even sure she understood what had happened to me, and literally instantly felt better. Like the sweating went away, the queasiness went away, and the burning was still there, whatever. Paid her, all of $10, whatever that converted to in Indonesian, and literally went straight from the bashed in vet's office for the woman who treats sick water buffaloes onto the boat with my arm all wrapped up straight to Komodo Island, where I went to see, feeling absolutely terrible, basically ruining the whole experience for me, sadly, but I went to and got to experience and sit with giant wild Komodo dragons long before it was incredibly touristy and done regularly. So if it wasn't for that little lady on that island of Bintang Flores sticking me in the butt with that mystery liquid, I have no idea what would have happened. I probably would have needed a medevac back to Denpasar in Bali or something, but she saved me. I felt like hell for the next 3 days. My skin never fully healed, as you could see by that scarring there, which has slowly gone away over the years. But that was another time that a random local saved my life, all because of something stupid that I did.
Before we dive into this next story, I've got to thank this video sponsor, Revolut. Look, when you're traveling to remote corners of the planet, you accept that things can go sideways, and I've had more than a few close calls. But the one thing that doesn't turn into a rescue mission anymore is dealing with money on the road. Revolut is now used by over 65 million people worldwide, and it's honestly become my safety net when it comes to managing money while hopping between countries. Trust me on this one, as someone who has been in several crisis situations before, including money ones. Right now, Revolut is offering new users a $20 bonus for signing up. Here's how it works. For anyone who travels, you know the pain of hidden fees, bad conversion rates, the headache of moving money across borders. Revolut takes away all that stress with their easy-to-use app and prepaid card. The best part? Their standard plan costs nothing each month. You'll be able to spend abroad without surprise charges, take out cash with no Revolut added fees at in-network ATMs, and manage more than 25 currencies with excellent exchange rates, all straight from your phone. You can also transfer money quickly to friends or family in over 140 countries in their local currency. You get great exchange rates, so you're saving on the fees. And here's another huge perk. You don't even need a social security number to open an account. Revolut is designed so that non-US residents can easily set up and manage their money from their phone. That is real financial freedom. If you're a traveler like me, an international student, a temporary worker, or just globally connected and have friends and family abroad, this is the app for you. If you scan the above QR code or use my link, you can get a $20 bonus. It only takes a few minutes, and you'll be grateful you did it. Thanks again to Revolut for supporting this video.
All right, so this next story is crazy. You maybe have heard me talk about it before on Joe Rogan or not, but I don't think I've ever done an in-depth dive on it. So we went to the Apaporis region of Colombia to look for this beautiful caiman called the Rio Apaporis caiman, or Caiman amarillo, which means yellow crocodile, basically. Now, when we got there, we flew in. This story could be so long, but basically we got to Colombia and then we found this plane that was a cargo plane flying into the jungles of Colombia. If you're wondering why a World War II era cargo plane may be flying into the jungles of Colombia, there may be a little bam bam in the mix there, but we didn't ask and they didn't tell. So we jumped on their plane, sat in the cargo hold, and flew into this airstrip in the middle of nowhere. Now we land in this beautiful village, absolutely loved it, and started working with the people, started showing them pictures of this caiman on my phone, saying, have you seen this? Have you seen this? They're like, yeah, I've seen it a ton. It's way upriver. We eat it. It's great. It's delicious. And it was like, wow, we are onto something. We're going to find this extinct caiman. This is so exciting. But as we did this in this little village, word got out that these gringos, and this was probably the second time or third time ever that gringos had even visited this village, but these gringos were looking for this caiman. Now, the evening came around and we'd set our hammocks up in this hut that they had said, please stay in the hut, and everybody was very polite. But then our translator comes over, his name's Tomas, and he goes, hey, the shaman needs to see you, the shaman Lorenzo, like he's the elder. We're like, why? And they're like, he needs to see you. We're like, okay. So we jump in line and we walk, kind of through the jungle along this beautiful trail in the middle of nowhere, and we come up on what's called a maloca. And a maloca is a traditional village elder's hut, but it's big. I'm not talking, like everybody's got these little huts, corrugated tin, thatch roof, whatever. This one's like, it's like a mansion, you know what I mean? It's like, it's gotta be 50 feet wide, this big hut, blah, blah, blah. And inside is sitting this man, this stoic looking man, older gentleman named Lorenzo. And Lorenzo brings us in. We weren't even planning on filming this. We ended up filming it on like iPhones or whatever, but Lorenzo brings us in, he sits us down in a circle, and through Tomas, the translator, we explain, thank you for having us, sir. Thank you, we love your village. Everybody's been so hospitable. And he's like, okay, like very stern. He's like, why are you here? And we're like, well, we really want to look for the Rio Apaporis caiman. We want to go up the river. And he's like, you can't go up that river. We're like, no, that's not good. We've come all the way here. And he goes, if you, we kind of go back and forth very slowly, respectfully, politely. And I go like, sir, we have to go up that river. And he's like, all right, well, if you need to go up that river, you need to be cleansed. And we're like, oh, that doesn't sound good. And so we're sitting in the circle around the fire, and he brings out this stuff. And the stuff is this green powder. And I don't want to say what it was because I don't even pretend to know, but where we were in Colombia. and it was green, and I think it was a mix of jungle roots and ground up leaves and who knows. And I don't mess with drugs. I've never done drugs. I don't want to do drugs. It's not my thing. But you're sitting there in front of a village elder who's telling you you have to do this cleanse, otherwise he's not going to allow you to use his canoes to go upriver. You're going to do what he says. So anyway, we're sitting in the circle, and there's this thing comes. It's in the snail shell with a monkey bone top with a beeswax plug. He takes the beeswax plug out and he pours out this green powder and he stuffs it inside a hollow monkey bone. And this hollow monkey bone is in a V shape like this, and there's a little beeswax holding it together. And so he shows us, you put it in here and you go like this, when you blow it up your nose. And so I'm already like about to have a panic attack. This is scaring me more than being paralyzed did, like I was like, what is going on here? So it goes around the circle and it goes from Lorenzo. I don't remember if he did it or not. I was so panicked. But I remember it goes first to Mitchell, my cameraman, and he does it. He's like, oh, my brain, And then he's like, okay, I'm good. And his like eyes are watering, his face all red. I'm like, oh God. And then it goes to my cameraman, Johnny, and then like he does it, and he's like, and I'm like, oh God. And I'm like getting more nervous. And then it goes to my cameraman, or my audio engineer, Trevor, and he does it. And he's like, oh, my brain. I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna die. And I'm like, Trevor, what's it feel like? He's like, it feels like chlorine on your brain. And I'm like, oh God, I'm so scared. And being the amateur at drugs that I am, it gets packed and it gets handed back to me. And then I'm like basically hyperventilating out of nerves at this point. And what I come to find out later is these guys do this like slow, like into their nose. Well, I'm old nervous, never done it before, basically hyperventilating. So what do? I go like as hard as I can and just shoot this green stuff up my nose. And literally I blow this pipe thing, shoots this horrible green stuff into my nose, and I immediately pull it down and go, oh, and I'm like, I'm not feeling good, but I'm like, do it again. So they pack it, and then I go, and I shoot again. They're like, no, slow, my camera guys. And I was like, yeah, my brain. And I'm trying to like not make a big fuss and scream and like sound like a big baby, because I'm trying to show Lorenzo, the shaman, that, I'm responsible and I'm doing this and I need to gain passage to go up the river. And anyway, from my memory, the pipe continues around the circle, but seconds later, I'm literally like rocking like this, and I haven't said anything other than like when my brain gets mushed. And there's pictures of this whole thing, or video, but my entire complexion turned literally this color green, like grass green. And I was like, excuse me, I have to get up. And I got up, stumbled like 5 feet, fell over on hands and knees, and just started projectile vomiting. And I just puked and puked and puked. And it was the first time I was puking, and I was so embarrassed. I was holding my gut, and I was putting on all fours, and I turned up, and I was like, "Bah!" And I was like, please tell Lorenzo I'm sorry. And like, it was the first time the whole night I'd seen Lorenzo crack a smile, and he literally burst into laughter. And long story short, I like dragged myself from there back to my hut, couldn't even make it into my own hammock, spent all night curled up in the fetal position throwing up. And it was a really rough night. And then in the morning, we went to see Lorenzo, and I was like, my complexion was still green, but I'd thrown up everything you could throw up. Couldn't drink coffee, nothing. I was so done. But where the story gets so crazy, and where the save my life part comes into it, is we go back to see Stern Lorenzo in the morning, and he goes, good, through the translator. I was like, what's good, Lorenzo? Like, I feel terrible. And he's like, you're the one who would have died from the caiman or the crocodile. I was like, what? And if you think about it, I always think this is crazy. I have my camera guys, I have my audio guys. Everybody's badass. I don't want to undersell them. They're incredible. They work with me on all these things. But I'm the moron that dives in the water to catch the anaconda or wades through the river to look for the caiman. They're the ones sitting in the canoe or the boat behind me filming. And what Lorenzo said that I found so interesting, that may or may not have saved my life, is that I had bad spirits inside of me. And the reason that I spent all night throwing up is I purged those bad spirits, which allowed me to safely go on this expedition without getting hurt. And so I thank Lorenzo. I remember thinking how crazy and weird it was. And then we headed upriver. A couple days later, we found the caiman. Nothing bad happened other than some parasitic wasp stings, one to the dick of our cameraman Johnny. That's a story for a different time. and we found the caiman, filmed it, made a great show, and it was absolutely awesome. And whether or not Lorenzo actually saved my life, I'll never know, but I'm going to credit him to the amazing discovery of that caiman and thought it was awesome. And those are 3 crazy stories of when locals saved my life because I ended up doing something pretty stupid. So let me know if you guys enjoy these stories. I've got tons more. I've got witch doctor, we've got voodoo, we've got extinct animal rediscoveries, we've saved people's lives from animal attacks. You name it, put it in the comments and I'll tell you the next story. Take care.